That's funny you say tracker boats too. That's where a lot of our manufactured. That's Katie and I were up at Bass Pro this past week, and we were fantasizing over buying a tracker boat, one of those little bass boats, little 16-foot one with a 50 horsepower on the back. Man, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be sweet.
Welcome to the Landscape Cafe and part 3 in this series. Brought to you with support from Fort Myers Garden Service, maintaining and protecting business and residential landscapes. Visit fortmyersgardenservice.com or call 239-990-7494.
When I'm thinking about how I pay people, when I'm thinking about how I handle situations where somebody has done something wrong, or a good example is we've hired some employees here recently that realistically, like, I feel like the Lord has led them to work for us. And so I'm very thankful that God provided that. But at the same time, they are not maybe the best equipped, not that they're ill-equipped, but in a time of extreme busyness, sometimes it's, I catch my mind thinking like, man, I need to get rid of this person and get somebody that can really do this position better and with less attention from me or from my wife. But then I started thinking of, well, if I do believe the Lord brought these people to us, those are the people that I want to minister to. Those are the people that I want to show grace and compassion and kindness and patience with. And that in itself is embodying the characteristics of how Christ lived.
For sure. Absolutely. And not only that, but also, I mean, that is the most important thing. And it's cool because even Dave Ramsey talks about having biblical principles in your business. And he always says biblical principles are fantastic ways to run your business as well, because not only are they the truth, the way, the life, like those are good ways to run. So you can build people who may not be where you need to be, and you can build them up and get them to where they need to be. And I love that Dave Ramsey always says that it's definitely a good way to have your company be, because all day long I hear people say, and I say this too, we're integral, we're honest, we're dependable, we're trustworthy, but like those are just words that almost every company just says. But if you don't have like a true foundation, like the true foundation is for us in our business as well as the gospel of the Bible. That's what we always refer back to and fall back to when the going gets hard. It's like, that's what we go back to.
And to your point, what you said right there is very important, because as the leaders of our business, if we are using Christianity and our faith as a label, and maybe even as something that's very important to us, but we're not daily actively seeking Christ and living it out and trying to run the business on his strength and not our own, and on his wisdom. Like I said, if I believe that God led a couple people to our company, then if I'm using just business wisdom, like the world's business wisdom, I would probably fire these 2 people right away and try to find somebody else. But I trust that, like I said, God brought these people to us. And so it's an opportunity for me to be able to minister and disciple to them. But if I'm not personally spending time with Christ, if I'm not personally spending time working in my faith, then believe me, I see it. I have seen it a lot, and I see it pretty much all the time when I'm not building my faith up and I'm not spending mornings in quiet time with God and I'm not meditating on his word. The position that I see myself wanting to have, which is one of patience and leadership and ministry focus, very easily becomes tainted because I will be very quick to snap at somebody or to act in frustration rather than patience. And rather than wanting to spend time in teaching somebody, I want to just say, get out of my way, let me just do it myself, and have that opposite effect that I'm trying to have. That's why it's so important. The same way the Bible says, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself for her. if we're going to love in that type of capacity, if we're going to serve and minister in that type of capacity, we can't do it apart from spending personal time with Christ.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I totally agree with that. Sometimes that's hard for other people to understand when they don't understand the gospel. And say, for example, I've done this myself when I've been in that position more so where I'm not walking very closely with God, and then I've snapped at some of our employees just in a frustrating situation. They're like, "Wait, but I thought you were a Christian. I thought you were all those things, you know?" And it's like, yes, I am, but I'm sinful, and I haven't been walking as closely with God as I normally do, or normally would be, and sometimes people just get frustrated. It's like then a lot of people kind of write Christians off because they're like, oh, they're just hypocrites or naysayers. But I mean, at the end of the day, like we always will walk with God and do our best, but sometimes we'll fall short.
Most of the time.
Well, yeah, most of the time. Yeah, right. Most of the time it ends up being like that. But I think the more wisdom and patience that we grow and the more that we mature in our faith, the more that we develop and don't fall short as much.
But so the other thing is what that does is like, we know we're going to fall short of that. Like we know we're going to be hypocrites. Like sometimes people, I don't like Christianity because they're a bunch of hypocrites. Like that's not anything that any Christian other than Christ would deny. Like
right.
Yes, we are, but it's how we handle things. So, and I can relate completely to what you said about how people perceive you when you're saying one thing, but then you act out of line with that. But realistically, that's just a good opportunity to humble yourself as a leader. And a good leader is humble. That's why you said like Dave Ramsey has, hey, biblical principles are good. Yeah. Very large biblical principle is humility. So when our mistakes and our shortcomings and our falling shorts are just opportunities for us to show humility, apologize, and that in itself is going to be a really good representation of the gospel and of Christ itself, because like, and it really does give a good opportunity to show the truth of what Christianity really looks like. It's not living perfectly. It's struggling and stumbling. It's seeking to live in perfection. It's trying to follow Christ, but knowing that when we fall short, Christ is there to make up that difference. Our shortcomings are made up from him. And, then we can move forward in humility and repentance and just continue on.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think it's so important to have that as the foundation of not only us and our people, but as for our companies, man. That is the foundation.
Just think of the people that you respect and you admire. Like humility is huge,
Oh yeah.
And, I want to grow in humility and humbleness, and people will want to follow a leader who's humble. People will want to follow a leader who can say, hey, listen, yesterday I snapped at you. That was completely the wrong way to handle things. I'm sorry. Will you forgive me for that? And I'm going to do my best to try to do better.
Absolutely. That is definitely something that I'm learning how to do. I want to switch gears a little bit. I'm glad we had talked a little bit about that. That's important to you, and it's important to me as well. But now I want to talk a little bit about some of the trips that you've been on. So as a business owner, it is hard, man. We go through a lot of challenging times, stress, a lot of weight on our shoulders. But sometimes we get to go on trips from money that we've saved or extra money that we've earned. And I know you are great at going on vacations and picking good places to go. I know you don't vacation small when you do go. Tell me a couple places that you've gone, or maybe some cool stories about trips that you've taken.
Okay, yeah, I do like to go big. I like to work hard. I like to play hard, and that is a business owner. That is kind of one of the perks of, like, yes, you deal with a lot of stress and you deal with a lot of things, but it's nice to be able to have the freedom to have vacations, have trips and things when you like to plan them. And it kind of gives you something to look forward to. Like for me and my wife right now, We have some friends from up in North Dakota that are going to be coming down for a long weekend in February. And so we've got a trip over on the East Coast, which is, to answer your question, one of my wife and I's favorite place to go, over Melbourne Beach. So I'm a surfer, as you can, this is an audio podcast, but as you can see, Bailey, in the background, I got a big poster of a guy surfing. So to me, that's a very enjoyable thing to do. So I like to go, typically each year I'll put on a trip to Nicaragua or Costa Rica with a group of friends of mine, a bunch of buddies. And that's probably going to change a little bit because that started like 8 years ago, and I put it on for like 7 or 8 years, where we'd go on a week-long trip and just have a good time, go surfing, take our mind off things. But now that I'm married, my priorities have shifted a little bit, and now I kind of want to do that with my wife and with my family. So I'm sure I'll have, if we do a podcast in a year, I might have some new spots that we go to with the family. But that's one place that I like to go. The East Coast of Florida is Melbourne Beach. They have good surf over there, and they have a really nice bed and breakfast that me and my wife go to. And that's kind of like a quicker, like long weekend getaway spot for us. And then we like to go up and visit her family. Her family's in Missouri, so I always love going up there and be able to take my mind off work, and just, her family is amazing. And it's so nice to be able to have in-laws in the family where you can literally just relax. Like there's not tension and pressure. Just, I feel like I'm with my family when I'm with their family. So those are kind of some of our favorite places to go.
That is awesome. What does your wife's hometown look like compared to your hometown? Is there a lot of differences or similarities?
Well, my hometown's Fort Myers, born and raised. So I got a lot of history here and a lot of pride here. But yeah, very different. Her hometown is it's a smaller town, around 10,000 people, I think. It's kind of a factory town. The town is Lebanon, Missouri, and it's like I said, it's a pretty small town. A lot of tracker boats.
All right.
A lot of factories are there that go into, so like her dad works at a company that her dad and her sister work at a company that manufacture all sorts of different parts for tracker boats. And, there's different plants and different companies that manufacture different aspects of the boats, but that whole town is very, it's very involved in the production of those boats. And so, but the town feel is different in a lot of regards, just because of the size. Fort Myers, you're born and raised from around here, so that Fort Myers has blown up in the last like 20. It's really changed a lot, which to some, good in some ways, and also I think bad in some ways. If you kind of like me, kind of like a smaller town feel. So that's changing a little bit, which is sad here. But yeah, they're definitely different. So when my wife moved down here, I think it was a little bit of a shock, a little bit of a culture shock for her, as far as like how much things cost, and just definitely some differences.
Right. That's awesome, man. I appreciate you sharing that. That's funny you say tracker boats too. That's where a lot of our manufactured. That's Katie and I were up at Bass Pro this past week, and we were fantasizing over buying a tracker boat, one of those little bass boats, little 16-foot one with a 50 horsepower on the back. Man, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be sweet.
If you do it, I can bet you that her dad probably had something to do with he does a lot of the fiberglass and the dash and the electrical and stuff like that, so he probably put his hands on it.
That is awesome. Wow. So he's busy, he's a busy man then. So he's still working up there and kicking butt.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's him, and like I said, her twin sisters in HR for them. That's kind of a newer position for her. And yeah, her dad's been working there for a long time. He's very involved and a very big part of their business.
That is awesome. Very cool. Well, sweet, man. I appreciate your time today. Thank you for chatting on the podcast. I think we covered a lot of good things, and thanks for joining us, man.
It's funny. I always watch these. You're very welcome. I always watch podcasts. I'm like, they're 2-3 hours. I'm like, man, that's such a long time. And I feel like it's been a super quick hour.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something I've been learning as a podcast. I'm like, I'll look down at try to kind of keep track of where we are. And then I'll look down at the time and I'll be like, holy cow, we already spent an hour. I'm like, this is great.
The Landscape Cafe is a production of Pure Landscaping and the Niche Podcast Network. Learn more about Bailey, Katie, and the team by visiting purelandscaping.com. You can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts. And don't forget, the best place to rate or follow the show is at thelandscapecafe.com. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. Stay tuned. There is more to come.